In a farm far, far away, a sneaky fox appears in the darkness of the night. In a mighty move, he stole all the chickens of the farm. Those chickens were our friends. The same night, a thunder strikes you. These strikes have given you powers to bring back our friends. My name is David Verstuyzen. I'm working for Margo Bank. We are working on creating a bank from scratch with the help of Kotlin. But I'm not here to talk about my employer, but to talk about games. So I just shown you the presentation of my game. This is a game I made for this conference. And how to create this type of game, how to display things on the screen. Why libgdx? And how is it working with Kotlin? To answer all of these questions, I want to ask you one very simple question. Who in this room knows this game? So yeah, this is Doom. It was released in 1993, but I don't want to talk about this game, but the team behind this game. So ID Software and precisely John Carmack. He had said, developing a game on mobile, it's an opportunity. It's easy to create a game for a solo developer. So I started to create my first application. This is Giroing. It just helps you to change the mode of your phone regarding your place. So if you're at work, it puts your phone, the sound on, and if you're in a conference, it will turn your phone in silent, for example. Unfortunately, it hasn't downloaded as I would, so I create another application, this time a game. So just a cat head, you tap on it, and you get a meow. It's very simple, but it was downloaded 10 times more than my previous app. So I understood, OK, I need to create game. So I create another game, Rotapong. This is just a 360-degree Pong. Then with the wizard, it's just a little puzzle game when you have to mix colors to open a chest of specific colors. And this is my first game fully written in Kotlin. And the last one, Mediascore, this is just a game to show you what you can do with libgdx. So how to create a game? First, you have to pick a game engine. And there is a lot of game engines on the market. You need to choose the one that will fit your constraints. Is it working on mobile phone? Is it only for iOS, only for web games? Is it free? What are the licensing fees? And obviously, which programming language do you need to use? So I picked libgdx. It was created by Mario Zesner. And the first version, the 1.0 version, was released 4 years ago. And it works well with Java. And so because it works well with Java, obviously it works well with Kotlin. This is the kind of game that you can create with libgdx. I found this screenshot on the Google Play Store. But you can create well-polished games. For example, here, this is AirDash. It's a game that will be released, I hope, soon on Android and iOS. We had mostly seen 2D games, but you can do 3D with libgdx. For example, here, this is just a 3D head. But I think that you will see mostly 2D games because it's less expensive for a game developer to create games in 2D instead of 3D. So we'll create a game. To do this, you can go on the libgdx website and download a project generator. You just click on it, and it will create a project for you. If you use it, don't forget to tick the Use Kotlin option. And it will generate a standard Gradle project. If you look in the directory that was generated, you will find several directories. So the first one is the core, where you will put the command code for all platforms. for example, for Android games, etc. But you have specific folders, for example, desktop, where you will put the code only for the desktop game, desktop version of your game, Android for the Android version of your game, and so on. So it works for iOS and GWT. I didn't try to create a game for iOS. I know that is used RoboEVM, but it was deprecated. Now you need to use Intel's multi-OS engine, but I never tried it, so I don't know if it works or not. But I can tell you that with GWT it doesn't work, because GWT uses the Java source code and not the Java bytecode, and it doesn't work with Kotlin source code. The ecosystem around libgdx is wide, and because it's a Gradle project, you can add some dependencies. So obviously you can add Kotlin, but you can add other projects like KTX. This is not Android KTX. Here it's a project specific for libgdx, written in Kotlin. Obviously, you can create your own modules, your own libraries. For example, create one myself to fit some constraints. And you can find a lot of other dependencies. So like this one, in-game console, you can have in-game console a la Quake, so you can run some command for developing purpose. OK, so let's make a game. Let's back to the basics. So first, a game is mainly based on the main loop. This is a method that will be called, and in this method, you will move things, your player, your enemies, etc., other entities. Then you will render things on screen, and you will do this 60 times per second. So we get our game. First, we'll clear the screen, just display a background color. Then you will display the background of your game, for example. You will display an entity, another one, and so on. So you get a game, you can display something on the screen, or to display things on the screen. There are several methods with libgdx. First, you need to access to the main loop. It's quite easy. You just need to inherit, for example, to a screen. So you can inherit to the class, concrete class screen adapter. So you have access to render method. Then you can use a sprite batch. This object, you need to call first begin to say, OK, I will draw something. Then when you draw everything, you need to call the method end. On the batch, you have several methods. One, for example, is draw. Then you can give a texture as argument, some coordinates, and voila. You got your first sprite on the screen. There is another method, this time by using batch shape renderer. This time is to draw shapes, not image, but shapes. Here I will say, OK, so I want to draw something, a shape field. I can set the color. I can call a method. Here I just call the circle method to draw a circle on the screen. My code, maybe you just noticed that is not very Kotlin-ish. I mean, there is a latenit keyword here. Here I need to call the begin and end method. If you are using KTX, you can, instead of inherit from screen adapter, inherit from KTX screen to get a more Kotlin-ish version. So here I can use val instead of latenit. And I can use a new method here, use, to get rid of the begin and end method. So I use code x, and y to display things on the screen, and how the coordinate system works in libgdx. So the x goes from 0 to the 0 is on the left and go to the right, and the y is from the bottom to up. By default, if you're doing nothing, the coordinate 0, 0 is in the center of your screen. So you can display something, and to move things, it's quite easy. You just draw something, change coordinates and clear the screen, draw the object on another coordinates, and continue like this, and it will create the illusion of movement. So I need to manage coordinates. With libgdx, you can access to the class vector2 just to store x and y. There are some methods on it. So for example, add, I will just put coordinates on this vector2 to move my object. So here, instead of using directly one x and one y, I will use the x and y from the vector2, add things on it, and it will move a circle, so from the top to bottom. I can do other things like access directly to the x and y on my vector2 of my vector. So if I want, for example, to do another movement, so here, just move my circle from the left to right. Maybe you noticed how I access to the x and y of my vector2 is not of the box with libgdx. You need to use to create an extension method here, or use ktx. So I can access to the x and y thanks to the Kotlin destructuring capabilities. And this is very useful to access this data. So as I said, it's quite easy. You just need to write some extension method to do it. KTX can do it for you. And so on my vector2, if I want to access the x and y, it's very, very, very easy. And so again, it's with a lot of entity. I want to display things on a very specific location. It has a specific size, and so on. So I need to create a lot of vector2 objects. And I don't like typing vector2 all the time. So instead, I create an initfix method. And here, with the v2 method, it will create a new vector2 object. Again, it's very easy to do. You just need to write a new method, infix. And here, as we can see, it just creates a new vector2 object. Again, is a lot about math. So this is a small breakout game. I got my ball, it needs 2 bounce on the side, and so on. So I got my rocket beside the ball. In a more schematic way, when the ball will hit the side, I will just multiply the x on the vector by -1, so the direction will go in another way. I will do the same thing for the rocket, but this time I will compute alpha, the distance between the center of the rocket and the position of the ball. It's only for gaming purpose. Because if the ball hits the edge of the rocket, the ball will go faster and it will be more fun. Otherwise, it can be a little bit boring. It's easy to do this kind of computation with vector2 because there is a lot of methods. So you can scale a vector, you can scale by another value, but there is a lot of other methods like normalize a vector, you can rotate a vector, you can add things on the vector, and if you don't find what you like, you can add a new method by just writing a new extension method. To manage the collision, I just use the rectangle object here. So my ball is not a circle, but in fact a rectangle. My rocket, it's the same thing. And I can just check if 2 rectangle overlaps with the method overlaps. Funny thing, it's the same thing, the same technique used in some games like here Street Fighter. When you give a punch, for example, there is a hitbox, a rectangle on the fist of the player. And fun fact, it's still the same technique that is used today for the last version of Street Fighter, even in 3D. But maybe you don't want to deal with physics, collision, and other things like this. It can be a little bit complicated. So you can use, for example, Box2D. It's bundled with libgdx, and this Box2D is the kind of physics engine used in some games like Angry Birds. Here it's a little bit more complicated. First, you need to create a world. where you can set gravity. In the render loop method, you need to call the method step just to iterate on the simulation. Then you need to add things in this world. Here, I just configure the thing I want to add in my world, the size, the density, the friction. It's a little bit more complicated to create things in Box2D. And the last thing, which is very interesting, the user data, where you can attach something in the simulation and something from a game, so it will create a link between the two worlds. And just with this piece of code, I can create this kind of simulation. So I will go back. I put things in my world, and it will react in the simulation world. So here I just add my chicken in my Box2D world, and it will create the simulation. It's very easy. Maybe you will think, oh yes, Box2D is a silver bullet. I will use it in every game. But this is not a silver bullet. But for example, for a platform game, you want your player to jump over the platform, and so the platform can be traversable. It's very, very complicated to do it with Box2D. So sometimes you need to create your own physics engine. So we just see how to draw things on screen, how to move things, how to check if things collide, etc., etc. Only with these techniques, you can create your first game. Now you will see more complicated techniques, like, for example, interpolation. So what is interpolation? So here, this is my title screen. If I look closely to two examples, we can see that the first version of the title screen is a little bit boring. The title is here, but the animation is a little bit boring. There is way more energy in the second version. But in fact, they took the same time. It's exactly the same amount of time to do the same thing. To use it, to simulate this, I use interpolation, and libgdx comes with a lot of different interpolation. And it's here to break the linear movements. So I use it, for example, in the game when every blocks arrive on the screen. This is not a linear movement, but non-linear. It's easy to use. You just need to call apply method on interpolation, and here to give a percentage from 0 to 1. And it will return another percentage from 0 to 1, and so here I multiply it by 100. So here I knew that my y will go from 0 to 100. So it's very simple to use, and if you want your game to be fun, just use interpolation to break linear movement. It can be used to move things, but to another things like size of an object, the color of an object, etc., etc. The screen, the viewport, and the camera. So in a game, we have a game, and we have a different screen. So the introduction screen, the title screen, obviously the game screen, the option screen, and the last one, the credit screen. To switch to another screen, it's easy. You just need to keep a reference on the game, then call the method setScreen. And it's very important to call the method setScreen because screen is a protected property on a game. So if you don't call the setScreen method, you may encounter some graphical glitches. So I want to create a game, and I want to that game on a desktop and a mobile phone. Let's take an example. Here, this is Hearthstone, a game that works on mobile and desktop. To fit the game on mobile and desktop, I think that we just cut every part that is useless on the game, so it can fit on a phone. And you can do almost the same thing with libgdx. So I got my screen adapter. I can declare here a viewport. So here I just use a fit viewport. I just say, okay, so I want to display a specific world, and the size of the world will be 200 and 200. In my render loop method, for technical purpose, I need to set the projection matrix to the camera, to a matrix of the camera. So I got my game, and I want that my game keep this ratio on mobile and desktop. If I use the screen viewport, because there is some different viewports, one unit in a world will be 1 pixel on the screen. But this time, if I use a stretch viewport, this time it will stretch the game and will try to fill the whole screen. You can use the fit viewport. This is the viewport I use maybe the most. So this time it will keep the ratio of your game. Just notice that on the left and the right on the screen, it will clear. It will just display the background color. You can use the fill viewport. This time you will fill the game and keep while keeping the ratio of your world. And the last one is extend viewport. Just notice that on the right of the screen, I display things, the viewport display things that weren't displayed with the fit viewport. So if you choose the right viewport for your game, you can display the same game on mobile and desktop without any specific code. Viewports are linked with a camera, and a camera, it's like a camera in a movie. You can move it, you can rotate it if you want. Again, to do this, it's quite easy, just access to a camera, and just, it's a vector 2, the position is a vector 2, so you can call the method add. Here, my camera will go up. I can rotate it, for example. So here I just say, okay, please rotate the camera on the Z-axis. And just with this little piece of code, I can create some nice effect. Like here, the screen checking, just by moving the camera on the left and the right and the left and the right. I can do transition effect like this, just moving the camera like in some Zelda game. And if you want, you can also move the camera, and the game is way more harder like this. So around the game, so what is an animation? In fact, just an image with multiple images in one file. We call this a sprite sheet. You can load a sprite sheet with LibGDX. So you load this image, you call the split method to say, okay, my sprite is 100 pixels on 100, it will split the image like this. To create the animation, you need to get all part of your image and put it in your array. But there is a trick here. Here, this is not a Kotlin array, this is a libgdx array. And you can lose hours on this issue. Fortunately, with Kotlin, you can use aliases. So I will just say, OK, my array, in fact, from libgdx is a gypdx array, and so you can write off this issue. After, you will create an animation. Just say, OK, the duration per frame will be 100 milliseconds. And that's how you get an animation. But if you do this, for example, with this sprite sheet, we get this animation. This is not the kind of animation I want. Instead, I want that the first frame will just be 800 milliseconds. To do this with libgdx, this is just one little trick. Just use multiple times the same image, and you get a far better animation. And so, oops, sorry, it's loading. Yeah, because in your game, maybe you need to load things. So in libgdx, you can manage resources and load it on the fly with Asset Manager. So you will say, OK, I want to load a texture. I want to load a music file. I want to load a font. You can load what you want. You can create your own loader if you want. In the render method, again, you will call the update method, and it will return true when everything is fully loaded. And obviously, you can access object, what you load, with the get method. But I don't like this method because you need to write to say, OK, I want to load a texture. I need to write get, and I'm a little bit lazy. So instead, I wrote another extension method. Here, I just can access to my resources by giving them a name. And regarding the type of the variable, you can know how to load this. It's easy to do, just create a new extension method, and there is a lot of very specific things from Kotlin. So here I write an extension method. I use the refi type, and I override an operator. And like this, I can just change the code I wrote. This is a lot of Kotlin things in just one method, but you can do very powerful things with it. So in my game, I got an option screen with a lot of widgets. So I got buttons, scroll pen, I got a label, I got some select box. With KTX, there is a nice DSL to say, OK, so I want my option screen to have here just a label. I can create a horizontal group, just put a text button in it with a label, another label, and so on. And so just by reading the code, thanks to the DSL, it's quite easy to know what will be your screen with all of the widgets. It can be a little bit complicated to fit all of your game code just in one method, so in the render method. You may need to refactor it by introducing some architectural patterns, like, for example, using an entity system. So what is an entity system? So in my game, I got several entities. So here, for example, this is the player. And this player has several characteristics. So obviously, it's a player. It has position, it has animation, state, and so on. And in terms of code, it's the same thing. I will say here, OK, I create a new entity. This entity is a player. It has a position. It has animation. It has state. Just a bit of Java here. To access all of this property, I need to first define an extractor. Then I will be able to extract the property of the entity. But again, I don't like this code because I need to write a lot of things. Component mapper, dot, get for. When I access the property, I don't like it too because I need to say, OK, I want the property player on this entity. So I read player dot get entity, and it's always a mess. So in libktx, with KTX, you can find some extension method to create a component mapper on the fly and to access properties on the fly too. So here, to create a new component mapper, I don't need to write a lot of things. I just write get. I need to create the component mapper. To access the property, it's like accessing like a map. I just say, OK, on my entity, I want to access the player fields. On the position, I just say, OK, entities bracket position dot xy. And so it's way more easy to read and to use. In a game, you may need a lot of state machines. What is a state machine? So here, this is a gate. And it can be in a state close. So here, it's closed. And an event will occur, and the gate will open. A new event will occur, and the gate will close. So this is a new state, here the closed state. This is something that for me is missing from libgdx, is how to define easily state machines. So I wrote my own DSL to do this. And by doing this, I discovered something nice with Kotlin. It's when the last argument, last parameter of a method is a lambda. So here, transition is a lambda. You don't need to use braces. So here, again, the last parameter is a lambda. I don't use braces. And so it's very easy to read. I can say, OK, on state, wait. This is the state. When the event, here event computer allow move happen, just do this transition. And really, it's very easy to read, because sometimes months later, I read again the code of my game, and I say, OK, this is how these state machines work. Not everything is perfect with Kotlin. I encounter some pitfalls with libgdx and Kotlin. The first one, and it's very frustrating, is when you're playing your game, for example, you're jumping, and the game just froze for 1 second. Why? It's because the garbage collector just passed here. And you encounter the stop the world effect. It's very frustrating. And maybe you encounter this because you use the nice Kotlin API, collection API. But this time, for each method, in fact, you will create a new list. And because it may be called 60 times per second, it will create a lot of objects in the memory. And so the garbage collector will work just after. Immutability is very cool for multi-threading, but in fact, a game is mainly only one thread, so you don't need it. Instead, just use mutable list. And the memory issue, you may need to deal with it on other parts of your game. For example, when I talked earlier about rectangle, I'll create some rectangle, but maybe I need to manage memory again on it. And libgdx comes with some pool object. So it's easy, you just create a new pool of very specific object type. You will say, OK, this is how you create a new object. After, you will say, OK, I want to get an object from this pool. You will use this object, and when you're done with it, you just need to free it. It's a bit of memory management, but if you create a lot of objects, you may need to use it. Integration with other tools, yes, because when you're creating a game, it's not only the game of your code. You need to create levels, graphics, and other things like this. For example, in my game, I use Tilde. This is a map editor. This is open source. You can download it for free if you want on internet. With this editor, I can draw a map with the help of some tiles. Very severe layers. And I can access to all of these object directory from the code, because libgdx know how to load a tiled map. So you can load your map if you want. You can access all of your layers. You can render it on your screen if you want. But the thing, the last panel of this editor I want to show is this one, where I can define specific properties. For example, here I will say, OK, so before exploding, I want that my brick will be hit 4 times. How to access it in my code? Like this. It's quite easy to do, but in fact, it's error-prone, because you're not sure of the name of the property, you're not sure of the type of the property. What I want instead is to access like an object, to say, OK, the coordinate is double, the hit just an integer. And I would like to use it like this. And thanks to Kotlin delegates, you can do it. Here, I just say, OK, when I'm accessing the hit field, just look for it in the property object. And again, it's easy to do. Just create a new extension method, get value, and to do the work. Again, it's a lot of very Kotlin-specific things, a lot of different things. But if you know it, it's very easy to use, and it will be very helpful. For my game, I use a sprite editor. Here, this is a sprite. This is not a free software, but it's open source. And in this software, I define animations. I just give a name for each animation. Again, I wrote a lot of extension methods to access it directly from the game, but I don't want to talk about it. Instead, I want to talk about Gradle and Asprite because I create a plugin for Asprite and Gradle. My plugin will just invoke Asprite and export the sprite sheet and a metadata file that will explain how the file works, the animation names, and so on. So I create my first Gradle plugin. To be honest, it's very easy to write. So I write my first Gradle plugin, but there is something that is very annoying me when I use Kotlin for other people's. Is when I forgot to set, for example, a field. What happens here if I just forgot to set the exec field of my task? Gradle just say, oh, it doesn't work. Deal with it. Yeah, I add this. But thanks to Kotlin, I can just use the Elvis operator to call another method, and in this method, I will use a word string. So here, I don't have any excuse to explain why you encounter this issue, what you need to fix it. And you can write a full documentation in your plugin. So if you're writing a plugin, you can use it. It's very useful. Last topic, it's a more advanced topic, but a very fun one. So I want to talk about shaders. What is a shader? It's just a little piece of code that you will execute on your graphic card. To do what? This is Jean-Claude, and it's on the green screen. With a shader, I will say, OK, every green pixel, I will replace it with a new image. But I can do other things like a nice ghost effect. And these shaders are used in AAA games. For example, here, the last version of Doom, how to get this image. In fact, they compute this image. Then after, they will compute a normal map, a deep map, a specular map, and they will mix everything with shaders to get this final image. They apply some tonality on it, some tones on it, and you get the final image. If you want to know more, just go on this website. And so I use shaders in my game mostly for transition. So here I got my game, a nice texture, and with a shader, I will create this nice transition effect. To do it, this is just a cutoff. I will say, OK, so the white at the beginning is the cutoff. Then with the time, it will be more and more dark. The cutoff will be more and more dark. So if a pixel is white on this texture, I will display the game. Or if it's black, I will display a black color instead. So I get this thanks to this small shader. And so if I want to create another transition, it's very easy. I can just use another texture, like this or like that. And you can do a lot of things with shaders. So again, a nice ghost effect or a pixel art effect. And you can do a lot of very complex things like this. This 3D scene, animated scene, this is not a 3D model. This is done only with shaders. So this is only code. So with libgdx, we have seen how to display things, move things, avoid sub-traps with Kotlin, and loading processes, and so on. And to do for the sole purpose to make games. So I'm David Verstuyzen, and I hope that we will have fun by making them. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.